I thought it was hard working in an investment fund and trying to win in a very highly competitive environment of analysts trying to get their stock voted into the fund and bought and invested in. I thought that was hard. But this is unlike anything else I've ever done. Like, oh my God. Hey, is this like so-and-so? And they're like, yeah. So I started pitching them. And the next thing you know, they start like smoking the fattest blunts I've ever seen in my life. And I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned. Is that if you're a trustworthy person, it will literally open doors for you in ways that... Hello, welcome back to the Chasing Lightning podcast. I'm Caleb Murado, I'm your host, and I am joining you straight from LA. Yeah, we're here. So, this is an interesting setup because of this lamp. I don't know if you can see like the other side of my face, but it's pretty much the only thing that I have to light my face at this current setup. I'm in my apartment right now. I live right now in downtown Corona. So if you search up Corona, I'll put like a little image of like the Corona map. It's like basically a huge circle, which is really cool. Very interesting design. And I'm here because, as you guys know, if you've been keeping track of what's been going on in the podcast, I'm working in a sales position at this company called Skyline, where we sell home security. We're in the business of protecting families. This episode is sponsored by Skyline Brinks, right? And I'm part of the Brinks sponsorship program. And Skyline is like the provider. We're the ones that knock the doors and tell people about the sponsorship program. So that's what I'm doing. I'm out here knocking doors in West Coast LA. It's been a really interesting experience. Man, it's my first week and I already got a sale. So I want to actually talk about how that happened. How did we get a sale in our first week? And what has this experience been like? Knocking on random people's door in LA and going from DC to LA to do this. And what does that look like? Because it is by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I thought starting a podcast was hard in the middle of the semester. Not middle of the semester, at the beginning of the semester in my sophomore year. Second semester of my sophomore year. I thought that was hard. I thought it was hard working in an investment fund and trying to win in a very highly competitive environment of analysts trying to get their stock voted into the fund and bought and invested in. I thought that was hard. But this is unlike anything else I've ever done. Like, oh my God. Like this is the real deal. Like, I was told by some of my like mentors, managers, great team. I'm a part of the highest performing office at the company. We're called Tribe. Go Tribe. And it's like the most like energetic and intense team I've ever been a part of. It's amazing. Like I will like put some videos or photos or whatever. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll try my best to like just put some images and photos of like the moments of everything while I'm talking about it. So that'll be fun. But they're just such a high energy team, and they're the highest performing office for a reason of many, because their culture there is infusing self-belief and energy. And I think they're infusing 3 ingredients that create high-performing teams: self-belief, discipline, and energy. And as a result, the people on the team, they're like the hardest working people you'll ever meet. And so the way that our schedule looks like is that depending on the day, it varies. But anywhere between, I start training anywhere between, that's like the start of my day. Training starts anywhere between 9 in the morning to 12 p.m., depending on the day. And then from there, after training, we commute to turf. Turf is just another way we say like, you know, the places we're knocking or that we're assigned to, because I'm assigned to turf. It's where I knock. And that commute is from Corona is like an hour, because we're going like up the valley or up the hill. And it's a beautiful trip there. Like, my goodness, again, putting photos and videos. But it's a desert town, and we're knocking in that desert town for like, usually we start knocking around 2 or 3, but if we're knocking from 2, we knock all the way to like 9:30, and I think we end our days from 9:30, even sometimes after 10. So we're knocking late, and that's one of the things that set our office apart. We're knocking late nights, and let me tell you, that experience has been all the more terrifying. It's never fun knocking on a person's door after 8 p.m. when it's dark, thinking, oh my God, I'm about to get the living crap screamed out of me. But Thankfully, it's never happened, at least. Well, actually, no, I take it back. But it's something you get used to. And I mentioned I got my first sale, and it's come because, one, I've just been like in this environment. We've been going through this like routine because the routine doesn't really change that much. I mean, we're working long hours, going through training, commuting, knocking, coming back, and it's just so much learning being condensed into one day. And the first few days are like you don't really know what you're doing. It's pretty terrifying because you don't have the pitch fully down. And once if you can step into the home or you transition, it's even more terrifying because if you've been working all the time, because you, as a rookie like me, it was my first time ever knocking in my life, ever doing this kind of job. So I don't have any prior experience at any other company or like door-to-door knocking company like Vivint or any like solar company, which are like notorious around these parts. But if you're like me, you're spending all your time working on the pitch. But if you're not working, if you're just working on your pitch and focusing your energy on that, which you should if you're beginning, you're not working, okay, what do I do once I'm in the home? So my first day, I was able to I didn't get into any homes because, I was like really rusty, just trying to get used to this new experience of just knocking on people's doors and trying to pitch them and getting used to that. But then the second day, something clicked and I transitioned into 6 different homes. And you can only imagine how terrifying it is just me being in these homes, just trying to do it. And I'm like thinking to myself, what am I doing? What the hell am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. And the thing that helped me in that when I was in their homes, like, hey, I just told them it's like my first day at the job or first week in the job. And I just will have this open, because I have my phone with me. I'm going to look at the pitch or the step-by-step, if you don't mind, so I can make sure I go over all the points. And people were very understanding, but internally I was freaking out. And then I think it was like my 4th day knocking in just on my turf when I had a chance to close a deal with someone I knocked on my first day, actually. And what happened was I didn't actually knock on this person's door. This person was just mowing their lawn. I approached them, I pitched them, and they said they were interested, but it was not a good time because they were mowing their lawn. The next day I knocked on their home and I barely missed them, but guess who showed up? Their wife did. And this guy's wife, talks to me. I pitch her. She's interested too. And that's really important whenever you get to talk to both the husband and the wife, because you have talked to both decision makers in the home. And one of the most common objections you get knocking doors is, especially if you're pitching home security, is that the decision maker isn't in the home, and the person who opens the door is like, hey, we need to wait for the decision maker. And a challenge is even learning how to deal with 2 decision makers, like the wife and the husband, because you're pitching value to both of them, and both of them are wired differently. But I just so happened to talk to both of them, so that when they came back to pitch the guy, there was a point when I was closing the deal, I dropped the price, and then the guy was like, I have to think about it, which I was like, okay, I got to re-loop, go back to the point where he told me what he really valued, or the things that he felt like would help him the most. We call these hot buttons. And so I was touching on his hot button, and I was getting ready to do that. But then as I was thinking about it and about to start re-looping to that, his wife walked in, which could have ruined everything if she wasn't on board. But thankfully, she actually said to him, hey, why don't we actually add one more thing? And that pushed him over the edge. So I closed the deal with them, and they're getting their security system installed beginning Monday, which is when this podcast episode is dropping. And if that goes through and the install happens, that's officially my first sale. But technically, I've officially closed a deal. The sale goes through when the installation happens, when the technician comes on the house and installs everything. So yeah, just getting there, it's just been such an interesting experience, because when you're doing this job, one thing I'll say is you are getting used to stepping into random people's homes, and you're learning to develop that muscle of audacity, and then figuring out how can you navigate the tensions, the objections, and I would even say there's a dance of getting to the person's pain points, and then from there delivering value, pulling back when you need to not build too much buying pressure at the right times, and Then finally you're closing it and you're dropping price, and then you're closing that process after you do that. And it's like a whole, and then there's so many things that can go wrong. I mentioned like having the decision maker in the room or not. On Saturday, I transitioned into 4 homes and I dropped price on each of the homes. But each of those people, man, like I dropped the price and they all said no. And it's so exhausting because you go through the whole process and then you just try to show them the value of the package, and they're just like, no, I'm not having that. And I know I'm learning so much on like what am I missing? Like in those cases, I think the 2 biggest things I took away from that was like, one, I dropped price higher than where they were expecting it to. So I didn't build enough value, or I didn't recognize the fact that they were looking to save more money than I thought they would. And the stuff that we're sponsoring them with, because like I said, there's a sponsorship program. The way that it works is that if we pick their home, we will sponsor the cost of the equipment and the install, and it's like such a great deal. I mean, what we're offering is really fantastic. I really believe in it, and plus we're protecting families, and that's really important to me. But it's like I didn't do it enough, and I didn't build the value enough, and I didn't know where they were at, and didn't recognize them. For one of them, whenever there's like a husband or a wife, and there's a decision maker missing, like the wife or the husband, depending on who's home, I didn't ask the guy like if his wife was supposed to be involved in the process. At the very end, when I dropped the price, he's like, "Oh, I'll talk to my wife," and I was like, "Oh shoot!" And so when I called them again to just touch bases, the guy told me, "Oh, I talked to my girl about it, and she doesn't want to have it." And boom. So you learn these things, man, and that's just like a tip of the iceberg in terms of the problems and obstacles you run into. There's also like a lot of like experiences where you're just like, for example, one of my favorite, I'll put a photo of this guy too. He's so cool. One day it was like late night and I was just looking for a door to knock, and I see these 2 guys chilling in the garage. So I approached them. I have a CRM where I can see like the address, the people who live there. And I asked the person, "Hey, is this like so-and-so?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I started pitching them. And the next thing you know, they start like smoking the fattest blunts I've ever seen in my life. And so I'm pitching these guys just as they're smoking their blunts and they're having a great time. And then I later found out that one of those guys that was in the garage, he actually has like a big social media platform. His name is Joe Cush. And Joe Cush, I think is Joe Cush on social media or TikTok. Joe Cush Inc. So Joe Cush Inc. And this guy's so funny. I ended up like creating a lead out of that because he was in the room, and it was a really cool experience just pitching to people, just like together, like they were smoking the fattest blunts I've seen in my life. And it just gears you to pitching the most weirdest environments when like there's like, I had to pitch, I forget the count, I forgot how many families at this point I've done this with, but I pitched so many families where their dogs are like barking so loudly, and I've had like to scream the pitch to help like to make them like hear me, unless they like pull the dogs aside. And a part of that experience is just learning how to be pleasantly persistent when you're pitching them, because you're gonna get so many people saying, "Oh my gosh, my dogs are just too loud," or "Oh my gosh, I'm not interested." And you're gonna have to learn and that's something I've had to learn. It's like, how do you listen to them and almost ignore that and then keep going with your pitch while still recognizing the fact that they said, "Oh, I'm not interested." So for example, if I were like knocking on a door and then I'm like, "Hey, is this so-and-so?" And the next thing you know, they tell me, "Oh, I'm not interested." And it's like, "Oh, no worries. I completely get that. I got to go in a second." Now I'm the one saying I got to go. And they're the ones that told me they're not interested. So now it's like the psychological effect of that's like, oh, they're like, "Oh, this guy got to go in a second. I should hear what he has to say." And it's like weird because you're still going. You just kind of just let them know, like before you addressed the objection, even before it became an actual issue. And something I've learned to do is I'm just learning how to integrate those things before they even say that, so that they don't really have anything else to say besides listening. Because people will listen if you make their objections listened to, whether or not you even know it. And that's one of the things I found so interesting, is that you can know what people don't want to hear. You can know what people just like want to tell you that they don't want to do, or people's like, "Oh man, I mean, I don't want to listen, or I'm not interested." You can know that even before they say it. And if you do, you can learn how to make that a part of your pitch, and you can leverage that. And all of a sudden, like, the script has been rewritten where now they are the listeners. And it's like, there's a level of audacity that has to be involved in this process that I'm developing. And I feel like even as like, so it was after, I remember one day after I finished like a long day of knocking, I was with my car group and we were going back home and we were stopping at Walmart. And I remember this one door that was open, like, or like a freezer. And you normally, like, these huge freezers that like these places have where they keep all like the meats and stuff. I don't know, just stuff that needs to be kept frozen. And it was like open. So I was like, hey, let me just act like I can walk in there and see what happens. And I just walked in the freezer. And it was hilarious. Like, it was such a big freezer. And so I invited one of my friends to come see the freezer. And as I was like showing him around, I hear the door, like the freezer door literally closing on us because someone like must have seen us and decided to be funny to close the door, which would not have been funny if it did close. But I luckily saw it before it did. I just like stopped it before it closed on us, or else I would have been frozen and dead. Like, that scene in Goodfellas. Yeah. Anyways, it develops this muscle of audacity. It's pretty fun because now you're learning how to create a pitch where you develop not just a level of trust, but a level of connection and common ground. And I think something I love is that, from that I've learned in training, is that common ground is the seed for trust. And I think learning how to do that in like 30 seconds or a minute is just like the essence of what we do to create a sale. And yeah, I mean, that's just been such an interesting journey and just learning. The last thing I'll say is this. In this job, I have the great blessing of being able to step into so many families' stories, regardless of how they treat me. And you know what? There have been so many times where, I finished a day and I've like literally had to question myself because there's like a part of me that just wants to like stop what I'm doing because of how hard it is. Because it's emotionally draining, and the desert gets like 20 degrees colder at night, so I'm like freezing, I'm shivering by the time I finish. And especially when I was starting, I was like, man, I kind of suck at this. And I feel like there's a certain level of like rejection I can take on a daily basis, but this is pushing it. And I don't know if I'm ever going to become more than what I am now. And some of the things like I think back to are the moments where I developed the trust to enter someone's home. And sometimes, those times, most of the times, they don't buy it because I'm still working on the inside process. But at the end of that transition or inside process, they would like give me food and we would eat dinner. And there's this one moment where I transitioned into this home. This guy was remodeling his house. It was like a mess, but he ended up like not transition. He ended up not like buying. In fact, he told me pretty early on, like, hey, like the monthly I'm paying with my current security system is like somewhere around $50, which is like extremely low. And if I did go that low for him, I would be losing money myself. So I was like, okay, that's not going to work. But before I left, he's like, here, have some dinner. So he made some dinner for me, and I was eating with this guy. And I remember as I was eating, I'm like, I'm right now in LA, eating in the home of this person I don't know. I'll probably ask to use his restroom after, which I did. You ask people to use a restroom, and they say yes. It's crazy. And he's giving me food. He's making sure I'm fed. He gives me water. He's so hospitable. He's not buying what I'm offering him, but that's okay. There'll probably be someone out there who will be. And there was someone who was interested in buying what I had. And I delivered enough value to them where they said yes. So when I'm like questioning myself, I think of like the opportunity of just doing that. And knowing that there will be people who are not interested at all, even though this is genuinely a great package and offer, who are just not interested in that. But there are people who just care about the person who I am. And they are most likely interested, maybe not, but at least they'll be like, hey, do you want water? Do you want food? Those people are the best. And it shocks me how there are some people in this world who, if you ask, and if you are a genuine person and you want to be a trustworthy person in your life, it will open the door, literally open the door for a conversation, an interaction, and an opportunity that will stick with you for a lifetime. And I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned, is that if you're a trustworthy person, it will literally open doors for you in ways that you will not even imagine. You just need to develop the audacity to be blown away. I want to end it there. That's going to be it for the summer, guys. Oh man, I'm going to just bring in as many people as I can from the company, because there are so many cool people with such interesting stories. Because you have to be a certain kind of person to do this job. And some of the people in my office are just incredibly interesting people with incredibly interesting stories. And they will share gems and keys on how to communicate and sell at such a high level. Because doing what I'm doing, I thought, like I said, it's so hard, the hardest thing ever. The people who figured it out, and they blow me away. And I'm excited to bring them on the podcast. So, yep, that's it for today. I hope you guys have been having an amazing summer so far. It's just been crazy, to be honest. I really don't have a ton of time to post stuff because my schedule is Monday through Saturday, and I told you guys the hours, and it takes up, and by the time I come back home, it's either 11 or midnight, and I'm exhausted. Plus right now, especially because I'm getting used to the time zone and the job, and this has been a challenge, but man, it's been learning so much, and these skills are just going to last a lifetime. If you found at least one thing helpful in this podcast, share it with someone who's like you, because they'll probably enjoy it too. Somebody who's on the same wavelength and page as you, pursuing huge goals and dreams and ambitions, who are chasing lightning, doing stuff that makes them terrified too. They'll probably enjoy some of this. And I appreciate every one of you. Of course, leave some of the things in the comments that you want me to go over or touch on, and I just can't wait to just hear from you guys. What are things that you just want us to have conversations with? Because the people I'm going to be bringing on, guys, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.